Hello, and welcome to a very long awaited episode of Rico's Rants. I'm your host, Rico DiGiorgio. Okay, since my last video, a lot has happened. I haven't done any of these because I've been kind of off and on in a weirdness that I didn't expect. So, my last video, I lost my mom, and that was really hard to get through. My mom died of an aneurysm uh, right after Stephanie um, and I moved back to my father's house. And that was still in the middle of quarantine and COVID, and that was a lot to take on. Um, I don't remember what I said in the last video where I basically talked about my mom dying. I haven't watched it. But I'm getting through it. It's still hard. I still miss her. Um, One of the things that strikes me about grief is forgetting. And forgetting specifically, like, I always kind of had to remind myself, oh, she's gone. And I was never in denial. I faced her death and the grief very head on and not so much made myself a martyr, but more of like, I know it's supposed to hurt. So I did. I went through it. I drank. I cried. I reminisced. I I cried and I cried. But eventually I kind of crawled out of the bottle and out of the hole and out of the despair. I'm still in a very happy relationship. I still have friends. I still have a podcast, Pot Askew, that I do with my friend CJ. I have a new job that I really thoroughly enjoy. Um, my movie collection has gotten way bigger than it should have. Um, but when it comes to forgetting, like I taught myself how to cook. When you kind of are living more or less on your own, you can't survive on cereal alone. So it became a good, fun thing for me to focus on and feed myself and feed Steph and feed other people. But periodically, I would be like, oh, wow, I learned a new recipe. I should call mom and oh, fuck, that's right. And that's what I mean by forgetting. It wasn't that I didn't know, it was just that in that moment of excitement, you want to kind of like tell your mom, hey, I made a really good, you know, I learned how to make, spaghetti carbonara. It wasn't that bad. It was actually really good. And you just like, fuck. So in the last 2 years since my mother died, uh, I've been partially taking care of my father, which brings me to this video. Um, my dad, Ron, who I believe I've talked about in the past on videos and definitely on Pot Askew, um, passed away. He was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer, and he passed away. And I'm now 31, and both my parents are gone. One, I expected at some point to happen. My father, who was elderly, and I've been aware that he could die either from a freak accident of his own doing or just getting old and sickly. I didn't expect my mom to pass away randomly of a fucking aneurysm at 59. So it's very much a thing to swallow. But I had about 15 years to prepare for my dad's death, so mentally I'm doing okay. I had about 15 seconds to prepare for my mother's death, so I'm not too. It's very different. It's a very different scenario. So when people are asking me, like, oh my God, your dad died, are you okay? I'm okay. It's just, it's weird. It's weird to, like, think of yourself kind of like as an orphan. And the term orphan is always kind of like used for like small children, like Oliver Twist, Harry Potter, that type of shit. But like, I mean, I think technically the term is that I'm an orphan. Both my parents are dead. That being said, I still do have I have a family, and in a little less than a week, this Friday, today's Monday, well, technically now Tuesday, I'm getting married. Stephanie and I are tying the knot. We're eloping, which is strange and also exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. It sucks that my parents can't be there, but it is what it is. So I don't have a movie to rant today. This is just a rant. This is just kind of an update on what's been going on. So, dead parents, future wife, new job, same pissed off expression on my face. Um, and hopefully new start. I mean, we're gonna have Steph and I are gonna have to move out of here. Uh, my family and I are gonna sell the family home, so that's another thing of like saying goodbye to something that's been integral to my life off and on for 31 years. I had my first steps like 5-10 feet from me. 31 years, I really didn't get far, as it turns out. But yeah, for the few people that watch this, as you guys know, this was really not about like getting views or becoming popular or getting subscriptions. I mean, those are all very nice, but this was always intended as a form of self therapy. And because it's a whole lot cheaper and easier to just turn the camera on and talk about movies and talk about what's going on in my life than, you know, going to an actual therapist. So, I don't know what else can I tell you guys? Honestly, I mean those are the important things. You know, my my father died and I'm getting married. And we knew it was coming. He was not doing well health-wise. There were a lot of days where he was miserable. I was miserable for him. I was miserable because of him. I don't I'm not trying to put any, you know, oh woe is me. But, I was helping take care of him and I had to call like the ambulance at least 4 times and get him to the hospital, and because it was just out of what I knew. I didn't know what else to do. And he was a very cantankerous, grumpy old man who didn't like that he was dying. And he fought tooth and nail at dying. But eventually, he had to go back, and he eventually, gradually, did pass away. I got to see him, even though he wasn't conscious. He didn't see me. I squeezed his hand. I said, "All right, Pop, goodbye. Fairly well. Hope. We grew up. He was an atheist, and he raised me as an atheist. So we don't believe in anything. But there's a part of me that's just kind of like, hey man, if there is an afterlife and there is a God, give him hell. Pun intended. Give him some shit. You know? That would be the ultimate fucking funny thing for like my dad, a diehard atheist and an absurdist who completely denounced religion and hated the concept of a god. For the for him to see a god, have a god in front of him, and still tell him what an asshole he was. There is a part of me that does tickle me in that regard. So, uh, I don't know. I'm not doing these that often. The last one was 2 years ago. It's more of just like when it strikes me, I'll do it. The podcast takes up a lot of more of my time. So who knows? Maybe I'll do another one. Maybe I'll get back into the swing of this. Maybe it'll become a hobby again. Until then, thanks for suffering through this like I've had to. Bye guys.